Okay, welcome back. It is 8/25 of 2015. We're going to take a look at Brentano's relationship to Husserl from the Cambridge Companion, and it is the final two essays in the volume, so this will wrap up the volume. But we're going to look at Brentano as related to Husserl, and we'll begin by taking a look at Brentano's descriptive psychology. There are three moments. There are presentations and aesthetics, which includes the sensate intense intuitions, and objects are accepted but not yet conceptual. They're just accepted as generalizations. And then you move into the moment of judgments and logic. We form a presentation of presentation. We raise generalizations to conceptual signification, which is an inner perception, and it is evident. In other words, it cannot be doubted. When the signification is present, it is not doubted. It is mental phenomena, and the mental phenomena are taken as object themselves. So the act of consciousness takes its secondary or obliquo examination of the generalizations, the slanted spiritual or oblique examination of the generalizations in order to raise it to signification. And temporal continuum is apprehended as a modality by associating the object's past with the object's present. The third moment is emotions and ethics. The generalization is raised to signification, is coupled with the self's motivational body state to form a coupled emotional hue that is attached to the sign. And the signs become a lexical network of preferred signs for the ethical good. Now, possibility and impossibility are considered irrelia for Brentano and not precisely perceivable. Now, to compare this, we're going to take a look at Husserl's descriptive psychology. And he says that authentic presentations do equal intuitions, and descriptive psychology is the starting point. Concepts are derived from the intuitions through attentive reflection on the intuited presented collections. And then you couple that with the act of abstraction to form significations. And there are 8 aspects of Husserl on the moment of judgment and logic. We are concerned with presentations in themselves, not presentations of presentations. The subjective inexistence comes and goes in the mind. So these objects are not to be temporally or spatially bound or limited. They are theoretical descriptive significations, and they are formed as propositions of truth, so propositional statement comes to the forefront. And that's why in 1894 Husserl rejected the notion of intentional object, because he preferred the proposition of truth. And time consciousness can be perceived with Husserl as a retention of near past and protension of near future. Consciousness is, of course, the subject matter of philosophy, so it is a philosophy of mind. So, very similar. There's not a big difference between Brentano and Husserl as far as I'm concerned. There's just some distinction in the finer points. I don't think there's any major, huge differences. We will take a look at the resultant synthesis between the two under different headings. Under psychology, they both agreed that the philosophy of mind is the first philosophy. Under intentionality, Brentano involved raising the object of inexistence from topoid to sign or signification through judgment. Husserl agreed that all consciousness is consciousness of an object, but every perception points back to itself reflexively, but also forward to acts of the same kind. So intentionality does constitute a horizon for Husserl. He emphasizes the aggregate horizon. Now, under content and object, inexistence, of course, for Brentano, this is best understood through the concept of inexistence. But for Husserl, the concept of noesis comes to the forefront as the irreal ideality and it does include unitary function, and noema, bring the mind into contact with object. So he emphasizes noema rather than in existence. Under state of affairs, Brentano uses the term relevant mark. Signs are structured through judging the relevant mark that each sign contains. For Husserl, structuring is based on propositions of meaning concerning judgment. So again, back to propositional truth. Under language, Brentano has three classes of language. Presentations use names, judgments use affirmative sentences, and we move from speech act at Aristotle's Da Kunta threshold to linguistic formation of signification. Now, under love and hate, we convey emotive signaling at the Da Kunta threshold. Now, for Husserl, it's the language of social act. And there are three aspects of linguistic social act at Aristotle's Da Kunta threshold. There's the initial utterance itself, and then the soul of the utterance as the modality of its presentation, then the understanding and return of a second subject at the Da Kunta threshold. There is the moment of understanding and return. Under the topic of parts and wholes, Brentano says that physical parts are separable, but metaphysical parts are inseparable. Under Husserl, objects are simple without parts or complex with parts, but parts can be divided into moments as dependent and inseparable parts, or pieces as independent and separable parts. So kind of that pieces and metaphysic distinction that Brentano also made. The metaphysical moments are inseparable, but the physical pieces can be separated. So similar to Brentano there. So we've got a good look here. It was only about a 20-page essay, and like I said, it's some very fine-lined distinctions. I mean, they are there, they are present, because Husserl does definitely emphasize propositional truth, whereas Brentano does not. He emphasizes the reism, the things of signification. But they are very similar, and that's why I sometimes say that Brentano is the true father of phenomenology. Although Husserl is credited with being the father of phenomenology, I sometimes try to link that back to Brentano. But it gave us a pretty good look. We got a chance to look at the way that the three moments in Brentano coincide with Husserl. And there is a major difference when it comes to judgment and logic, because Husserl really does depend on propositional truth. But there is another difference, because there's such a huge emphasis by Brentano on inexistence. For Husserl to deny that notion of inexistence, that's the major difference. Okay, that's the huge difference, because Husserl just wants to emphasize horizon and noematic structuring of the whole through propositional truth, and Brentano holds on to that notion of positing and the notion of inexistence as a true reality, as the notion of the true, as the realm of the real. That's the big difference. That's the huge difference. So that certainly is a significant difference between the two. In 1894, when Husserl rejected the notion of the intentional object, that's a huge moment. So that's, if you look at that second moment under note 4, that's the big difference between the two. But there are so many similarities that, and I also know that Brentano did also emphasize noema when he got to his concept of the notion of the true, when forming a universality. After we get that lexical network of significations, we do move on to interrelatedness and universality, and that's when Brentano takes up noema, the concept of noema. So he doesn't reject the concept of noema. So again, they can overlap there. I see very easily the opportunity for an overlap there when Brentano moves on to that third-party universality that is posited as a workspace at the Da Kunta threshold that is used to shape a noematic overall interrelated model or sign model. But the big difference is the 1894 split on inexistence. That's the big difference. So that gives us a pretty good look of how Brentano and Husserl are related, and that's the conclusion of the